He lived in the shadows, not the romantic kind. No trench coat, no fedora, no whispered secrets traded in alleyways. His shadows were quieter, more dangerous. They followed him into diners, tote rooms, and jail cells. To the outside world, he was just another name in a police file. Another drifter, another man with a record and a temper. But law enforcement would come to know him differently. He was intelligent, calculating, charismatic when he wanted to be. He could sit across a table from you, smile, talk baseball or politics, and never once reveal what he was capable of doing for money. He had a gift for blending in. Born in the American South during the Great Depression, he grew up in a world where toughness mattered and trust was a liability. He learned early how to read people, how to tell who could be fooled and who could not. By adulthood, he had crossed a line that few ever returned from. He became a professional criminal, not a burglar chasing televisions, not a thief breaking windows. Something colder, he became a man who accepted contracts. Cash for silence, money for permanence, payment for a problem that would never return. By the 1960s and 1970s, his name circulated quietly in criminal circles, not in headlines, but in whispers. He moved frequently, left little behind, always stayed one step ahead of consequences. Until the night he didn't. In 1979, a man was gunned down outside his home in San Antonio, Texas. It wasn't a robbery, it was precise. The victim was a federal judge, a man who had earned a reputation for being tough on crime, a man whose rulings had ended careers, sent criminals to prison, and made enemies who never forgot. This time the justice system had been struck directly. The murder shocked the nation. Federal judges were not supposed to be targets. Not in modern America. Not in daylight. Not in front of their own homes. Investigators followed trails that led them through underworld contacts, informants, and eventually. To him, what made the case stranger was not just the crime, but what happened next. While intoxicated, he made statements claiming involvement not only in this murder, but in the assassination of a U.S. president years earlier. Those claims would never be proven, but they ensured one thing: he would never again live outside prison walls. At trial, prosecutors painted a picture of a man who lived by contracts and detachment, a man who separated actions from consequences, a man who believed himself clever enough to outthink the law. The jury disagreed. He was convicted and sentenced to multiple life terms in federal prison. That should have been the end of the story. But it wasn't, because behind the headlines, behind the mugshots, behind the cold descriptions of crime, there was something else. There was a family. A woman left behind, children who grew up without answers, a son who barely knew him at all. The man disappeared from their lives early, leaving behind only rumors, absences, and questions no one wanted to answer honestly. That son grew up in a very different world. A world of classrooms and auditions, of scripts instead of court transcripts, of laughter instead of gunfire. The son would become known for humor, intelligence, and an ability to portray humanity in all its contradictions. The father, meanwhile, aged behind bars. In prison, the man who once moved freely now lived by schedules, lockdowns. Silence. He maintained his innocence in some moments. Boasted or dicted himself often. He became a legend of sorts inside prison walls, not for remorse, but for reputation. In 2007, he died in federal custody. No redemption, nor public apology. No last-minute confession that tied everything neatly together. Just a life that ended as it had been lived, in separation. And only then did many people begin to connect the dots. Only then did the public realize that the man behind one of the most shocking federal crimes of the 20th century was connected. By blood, not by choice, to someone they thought they knew. Someone they watched on screens. Someone they associated with humor, empathy, and talent. Someone who had built a life defined not by violence, but by expression. Because the truth behind the story is this: the convicted killer, the man sentenced to life for the murder of a federal judge, the criminal who lived in shadows of law as the father of actor Woody Harrelson. And now you know a little more of the story.